Look at your phone. You have hundreds of contacts, thousands of followers, and endless ways to communicate instantly. We are the most connected generation in the history of humanity. So why do you feel so incredibly lonely? Consider the immense psychological drain of your daily interactions. You send a message, you wait, you watch the read receipt. And when the response finally comes, it is completely devoid of substance. Why is it that every time you try to get close to someone, it ends in pain? It always seems to end in misunderstanding or a slow fade into absolute silence. You give them your time, your energy, and your trust, and in return you are left feeling hollow, exhausted, and unseen. The modern world tells you to keep trying. It tells you to just be more vulnerable, to trust the process. The modern world is lying to you. Today, inside the Psyche Vault, we are going to expose the brutal truth about intimacy. We are going to strip away the toxic positivity that keeps you trapped. We are going to look at Arthur Schopenhauer's famous Porcupine Dilemma, and we will discover why the very thing you crave the most is exactly what is destroying you. Welcome to the Psyche Vault. Arthur Schopenhauer was a 19th century philosopher, a master of observing human suffering. He did not write for the optimistic, the naive, or the foolish. He wrote for the realists. Schopenhauer understood that human life is driven by an endless, restless will. He noticed a tragic, unavoidable paradox in how we interact with each other. We are terrified of being alone because the silence of our own minds frightens us. But we are equally terrified of being hurt, betrayed, or consumed by others. This is the fundamental curse of the human condition. To explain this inescapable curse, he created a metaphor that perfectly captures the modern dating and social landscape. It is known as the Porcupine Dilemma, or, as it is sometimes translated, the Hedgehog's Dilemma. It is a brilliant, ruthless observation of why we continuously sabotage our own peace of mind. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why your relationships fail. You will understand why ghosting has become a global epidemic. You will see clearly how manipulators use your fear of loneliness against you. And, most importantly, you will learn how to finally find peace in an increasingly isolated world. Imagine a group of porcupines on a freezing, brutal winter night. The environment is hostile, barren, and utterly unforgiving. The wind is howling, and the temperature is dropping rapidly. To survive the bitter cold, they huddle close together to share their body heat. They do not do this out of love. They do this out of pure necessity. They need each other simply to stay alive. But the moment they get too close to one another, their sharp quills pierce each other's skin. The physical pain of the stabbing becomes unbearable. So they pull apart. They retreat back into the freezing darkness to escape the agony of the sharp edges. But out there in the dark, the freezing cold soon forces them back together. And again, they huddle. And again, they stab each other. They repeat this endless, miserable, agonizing dance. They are driven together by the lethal cold of loneliness and driven apart by the sheer pain of intimacy. This is us. This is the sum total of humanity. The cold, in this metaphor, is the crushing weight of our own isolation. It is the existential dread that haunts you when the room goes quiet. The quills are our flaws, our unhealed traumas, and our massive egos. They are the passive-aggressive remarks, the sudden betrayals, and the emotional baggage. You desperately want the warmth of another human being. You want to feel understood, seen, and valued. But you cannot have their warmth without eventually feeling their quills. There is no exception to this rule. To believe otherwise is to walk blindly into a slaughterhouse, expecting to find a sanctuary.
Now we must examine how the cunning and the Machiavellian exploit this very dilemma. Because the world is full of individuals who perfectly understand your fear of the freezing cold. When you are isolated, when the chill of loneliness sets in deeply, you become desperate. And desperation always makes you blind to the quills. A manipulator or a dark triad personality will approach you exactly when you are most vulnerable. They will offer you intense, immediate, intoxicating warmth, and they will carefully, strategically hide their sharp edges. This is a psychological tactic known as love bombing, and it is a strategy as old as time. They mirror your deepest desires, creating a flawless illusion of absolute safety. You drop your defenses, believing you have found a safe harbor from the winter. But once you are close, once you are thoroughly dependent on their heat, the dynamic abruptly shifts. They begin to actively weaponize their quills. They deploy subtle criticism, continuous devaluation, and sudden emotional withdrawal. They intentionally step back, letting the freezing cold of isolation shock your nervous system. Then, just when you are about to break, they step forward again. They offer just enough warmth to keep you compliant, addicted, and confused. They make you endure their psychological stabbing just to feel a fraction of the heat you once had. And you tolerate it. You tolerate the disrespect because you are terrified of returning to the freezing wasteland alone. Fools operate in a very similar manner, though out of sheer incompetence rather than calculated malice. They want the benefits of your warmth and your energy, but they absolutely refuse to take responsibility for their own sharp edges. They bleed their trauma all over you and then blame you for standing too close. This is exactly why you must view every new interaction with a calculated and highly skeptical eye. Setting boundaries is not about protecting your ego, it is about protecting your sanity. Schopenhauer wrote this philosophy in the 19th century, but it stands as the absolute perfect diagnosis of the 21st century. Today, modern society has created a massive, multi-billion-dollar illusion to escape the Porcupine Dilemma entirely. That illusion is social media and the endless array of dating apps. These digital platforms offer us something incredibly dangerous: fake warmth. They are digital hallucinations engineered by algorithms to exploit our biological craving for connection. You get a text, you get a like, you get a superficial swipe on a screen. It temporarily tricks your primal brain into thinking you are close to the fire. But there is no real heat. It is merely a glowing rectangle in a dark room, offering nothing but empty, fleeting dopamine. And more importantly, in this digital space, there is zero risk of getting stabbed by the quills. Because true intimacy requires physical presence, friction, vulnerability, and massive risk. Online, you control the narrative entirely. You can simply block, mute, swipe left, or completely ghost someone the very second they show a human flaw. We have become a society so profoundly terrified of the quills that we refuse to get close to anyone at all. We have entirely lost the psychological resilience required to tolerate human imperfection. We demand perfect, flawless partners and frictionless friendships that require zero effort. We expect a tailor-made reality that caters exclusively to our immediate comfort. And because of this completely impossible standard, we are freezing to death in a digital winter. We collect thousands of artificial connections, yet we have never been more isolated. Look around you. We are surrounded by millions of other freezing people. Everyone is aggressively performing warmth on their profiles. But behind the screens, everyone is quietly dying of the cold. Do not let this digital theatre deceive you for one more second. 1,000 followers will not protect you when the foundation of your life inevitably cracks. So, the ultimate question remains: how do we actually survive the winter? If absolute isolation is freezing and close intimacy is agonizing, what is the strategic move?
Schopenhauer's solution was not to blindly search for the perfect quillless porcupine. Let me be very clear, there is no such thing. Searching for a flawless human being who will never hurt you is a fool's errand. It is a delusion that will leave you endlessly disappointed. His solution was pragmatic. His solution was to find the optimal distance. This concept is the absolute core of intellectual and emotional self-defense. Finding the optimal distance means establishing rigid, uncompromising boundaries. It means accepting the harsh reality that all genuine relationships require a tolerance for minor pain. Friction is completely inevitable when two distinct, selfish egos collide in reality. Politeness, respect, good manners, and personal space, these are not outdated concepts. They are the vital mechanisms we use to survive. We use them to stay close enough to feel the warmth of society, but far enough away to avoid the deepest wounds. You must learn to enforce this optimal distance ruthlessly. When someone attempts to bypass your filters, when they demand premature intimacy, you do not argue. You deploy strategic silence. You physically and emotionally disengage from the interaction immediately. You let them hit the cold, hard, invisible wall of your boundaries. But Schopenhauer had one final, ultimate piece of advice. He said that the strongest porcupines are the ones who learn to generate their own internal heat. This is the absolute pinnacle of psychological sovereignty. If you build your own purpose, if you become truly comfortable in the dark silence of your own mind, you will never again be desperate. You cultivate intense discipline, deep knowledge, and an unbreakable internal framework. You stop seeking validation, and you become a fortress. You will no longer force yourself into painful or toxic situations just to escape the cold. You will no longer be easy prey for manipulators offering cheap, artificial warmth. Because when you finally learn to be alone, you finally have the ultimate power to choose who you allow close to you. You interact with the world from a position of absolute, unshakable strength. You cannot have intimacy without vulnerability. You cannot have the warmth without the quills. This is the unalterable, brutal law of human dynamics. Accept it, or continue to be a perpetual victim of your own unrealistic expectations. Stop looking for a perfect connection in a deeply imperfect world. Stop demanding that reality adapt to your personal fragility. And start doing the hard work of building your own internal fire. The weak will always search for a pain-free existence, and they will freeze in the dark because of it. The wise accept the cost of the warmth, but they fiercely dictate the terms of every single transaction. If this perspective brought you clarity in a deeply confusing world, hit the subscribe button. Here at the Psyche Vault, we face the dark truths of human nature head-on, so you don't have to. We give you the tactical tools to survive the predators, the manipulators, and the fools. Generate your own heat. Become the fortress. We will see you in the next video.